Okay, so I watched this show with the intention to make a video on it because I thought it was myth-related, because the show is literally called Japanese Tales of the Macabre, which would make me think it's about, like, yokai and stuff. Obviously, I'm a big yokai fan, but upon watching it, it turns out it's actually not myth-related. But you know what? I watched the darn show, so I'm going to make the darn video, and if you want to hear my thoughts on this show, here we go. Junji Ito, Japanese Tales of the Macabre. What do I think of it? It's pretty good. And what I mean by that is, here's the thing, it's not one recurring story. Each episode is a completely different story, and the quality varies. Some episodes are meh, some of the stories are disappointing, some of the stories are pretty darn good, actually. Some of the stories are almost good, but don't quite make it. A couple of the stories just, I think, forgot to have an ending, actually. But I'm glad I watched the show, overall. And if there's a season 2, I will watch season 2. So, overall, yeah, I would say it's worth checking out. I would say check out the first 3 episodes, if you're interested in this. Because I don't think episode 1 is... I think episode 1 is just meh. It's really meh. I'm guessing the characters in that, like, I think they're recurring in the manga, like I did look up some of this, and so maybe that's why they felt the need to establish them in the first episode. Episode 2 is a 2-story episode. This is one of... I'll get into something about that later, but episode 2 is a 2-story episode. The first story is okay, and the second story is actually pretty good. The third episode is 1 story, and I really liked episode 3 a lot. So I'd say check out the first 3 episodes and you'll get a good overall grasp of what the show is like and if it's something you'd want to continue. There's a total of 12 episodes and about half of them are 2-story episodes. Now, one of the main issues I'm going to do no spoilers first and then I'll go into spoilers and I'll let you know when I do. And when I go into spoilers, I'm going to talk about each individual story. So one of the main things that I think is holding these stories back is how short they are, honestly. There were several times where I finished an episode and I was like, oh, I really think we needed more there. I think everything went too fast. Like episode 2 is a great example of this, especially because it's a 2-story episode. That means each story is only like 10 or 11 minutes long. It's not long enough. Like, episode 1, like I said, is pretty meh, so I didn't care, but that was the full 24 minutes. Then episode 2 starts with 1 story that's an interesting premise, and it's, like, legit creepy, and I feel like it could have been really something, like, that freaked people out, but it's just over too fast, and the reveal is alright, but it's just, it all goes by way too quick. And I looked up what happens in the manga as opposed to what happened in the episode. There's actually more that happens in the manga. A little more, not a lot more. But they didn't include it in the episode, I guess, because they felt they had to shove it all into 11 minutes. Then the second story in the second episode, which is called Ice Cream Truck, this was a really good premise, I thought, and even had good payoff. But again, it's too short. I honestly think we needed more build-up and more of a creepy, like, reveal and everything. But, no, it was over too fast. Episode 3 is really good, though. I think that one... The only issue with episode 3 is characters making incredibly stupid decisions, and I'll get into that in spoilers. But, yeah, I think one of the best ways to describe Japanese Tales of the Macabre is R-rated anime Twilight Zone. You know? I really liked Twilight Zone as a kid. So, you know, it's basically just like these constant short little stories of creepy stuff happening, and don't expect explanations, because the creepiest stuff that's going on is not going to be explained in most of the stories. I think in about 2 of the stories, the creepy stuff is explained. But in the majority of them, you're not going to get an explanation. Don't expect one. which is, also sometimes what happens in Twilight Zone. Sometimes they don't give you an explanation, or sometimes when the explanation happens, it's like, how would you know that? Like in Little Girl Lost, when the girl, like, rolls into another dimension and the guy's, like, friend, like, just walks in the room and goes, I think you're, like, your daughter has clearly rolled into another dimension. It's like, okay, you're just gonna jump to that? They actually have something like that in this show, and I'll get into that in spoilers. But yeah, the story's lengths hold them back a little bit, but when the stories are good, they're good. And so like I said, maybe check out the first 3 episodes. There probably will be a season 2 because there are more stories in the manga. I've been debating whether or not to check out the manga. I'm not entirely sure I will, because, like, there's this recurring character. Apparently, like, I think it's, like, the author's favorite character is this boy named Suichi, who appears in 2 episodes in this show, and I hate him. I don't think he's fun at all. I think he's just annoying. He's just super, super annoying, and his stories aren't even scary, in my opinion. So it's like, I don't know why he's a favorite. A much more interesting character is Tomi, who appears in 1 episode of this series, and I honestly really wanted more of her, and apparently she's a recurring character in the manga, so I don't know why we gave Suichi 2 episodes and only gave Tomi 1. So overall, what would I give this show? I'm between a 6 or a 7, and that's not a bad rating, by the way. 6 is above average, 7 is good. So we're somewhere in the middle of 6 or 7, because some of the episodes are not good, but some of the episodes are pretty darn good. So it really depends on, I guess, which episodes I'm talking about. Not myth-related, but still Japanese and still fun overall. Animation's good, by the way, for this kind of a story. I never felt like the animation never felt cheap. There's 1 episode that's in black and white for, I guess it's supposed to add to the ambiance, but I didn't think it was necessary. That's I think that's about all I have to say with no spoilers. So let's get into spoilers. I'm going to talk about each individual episode. I've got them listed here. All right. So spoiler alert, 3, 2, 1, boom. Okay, so episode 1 is the strange Hikizuri siblings, and this was meh. This was very meh. So basically, there's this family, there's 6 siblings, and maybe there's reasons for it in recurring stories, but in this episode, there's no reason for there to be 6 siblings. You could have gotten the same point across with 3 or 4. The oldest sibling is, so respected by the family because they think he's going out and working to bring the money, but it turns out they have an inheritance. He's not actually working. And he tries to hold a seance to impress a girl. This whole impressing the girl thing doesn't play into the plot either, by the way. It was pointless. They hold a seance, and, it seems like the younger brother gets possessed and says that the younger brother has to take over the family now. I called right away, okay, that's the younger brother, lying to them. And then, at the end it's revealed, but then at the very end, the youngest brother actually does contain the spirit of their dead father. And then the spirit just chases after them for a bit and goes back into its grave. And I'm just like, what was even the point of any of that? I don't see what the point was. What's the lesson here? What's the theme? It's just random stuff happening. I thought it was very meh. But episode 2 is much better. So episode 2 is a 2-story episode. The first story is The Mysterious Tunnel. This is where, people are randomly disappearing in this tunnel, what's happening to them. It's a good premise. It's legit creepy. I really love the part where, they establish that, water is dripping from the top, so when water falls on the boys' heads, they're like, is that blood? Oh, no, it's just water. Then later, the main character returns looking for his father, and he finds his flashlight. He's like, but where's my dad? And right where he found a flashlight, something drips on him, and he rubs it, and it's revealed that's blood. So and I love that they don't spell it out for us. If you, put it together, you can put together the dad's up there, and he's dead. And he keeps looking for his father, and we know what happened, but he doesn't know. And that's really good storytelling, in my opinion. But again, it's too short is the problem. It's too short. I feel like, once the payoff occurred, it wasn't really creepy enough. I feel like you could have made it so much creepier, them getting pulled into the walls. But when they get pulled in the walls, just a little pool of blood appears. I feel like you could have made it really grotesque and something like that. And you could have made it last longer, is what I think was really needed. It was just, build up for a few minutes, and then, 1 minute of payoff, and I don't know. Apparently in the manga, so in the show, the main character just dies right there as a kid. But in the manga, apparently he goes home, he escapes, and he grows up, and yet he still ends up getting pulled back to the place and dying anyway. I think that's a little better, but, but it's the second story in episode 2 that's really interesting. It's Ice Cream Bus. Ice Cream Bus, great, creepy presence. Very good payoff. Again, too short, though. I think we needed more build-up. In Ice Cream Bus, there's this random man in an ice cream truck offering to take all the city kids on a tour of the city with free ice cream, and the town apparently just has the worst parents ever, because they all allow their kids to go into a strange man's ice cream truck and be away from them for the whole day. It's hi, you guys want a parent? I think that might be the lesson here, is because the main character, the main dad, at first doesn't want to let his kid, do that because it's bad parenting. But then his kid throws a tantrum and says, I'd rather live with mom than with you. And so the dad gives in and lets it happen. And, so it's a good lesson. It's a good theme. That's a story where I know what the theme is. But, what ends up happening is kind of creepy, honestly. But it's just over too fast. So, that's what the problem was. I think we needed some more build-up and some more payoff. The episode needed to be twice as long, in my opinion. It should have been a 24-minute, story. Then we got episode 3, Hanging Balloon. This one's great. I love the premise. It's so original. I've never seen something like this before. It's legit scary. If you haven't seen this, just go watch it. Before I spoil it for you. But basically, it's where the town is being attacked by these balloons that have nooses attached to them, and the balloons each have the face of the person they're going after. And they're going around trying to hang the person whose face they have, and the faces are all smiling so creepily, but then when they hang the person, the faces just become blank. I think it's because once they hang the person, their face matches what the person's face looks like. And I was thinking at first, it's balloons. Surely we can find a way to pop those. And someone does pop one. So, that's okay, you address that. But if you pop the balloon, then the human who the balloon is going after dies anyway. So it's holy crap, how do you fight these things? They'll try to hang you, or you can't pop them or burn them, because then you'll die too. But so one thing that is established, though, is that the noose can disconnect from the balloon and the balloon doesn't die. So it made me wonder why everyone doesn't just go out there with knives and cut the nooses. No one even seems to try that. So I was okay, well, you could just have a knife, you could hold it here, blade facing outward, and when the noose comes, just, and, see what happens. At least try it. At one point, the main character's brother goes out and is all right, it's okay. If that balloon comes after me, I'll attack it with this umbrella. And I'm do you not have a kitchen with knives? Dumbass? See, that's a character being dumb. And I swear, when the apocalypse is happening, and it's on the news, the apocalypse is happening, stay indoors, don't go out, these balloons will kill you, the main character's dad gets up and goes, yes, well, you know what? I still need to go into work. There's work that must be done today. And I'm dude, it's the apocalypse. Fuck your job. What are you doing? That's like a parody movie moment. Not gotta get into work today. Dumbass. That was the stupidest moment in this whole season. honestly. And then, like, at the end, like, the main character, apparently the balloons can talk. They try to get her to come out of her house, and her brother's voice tries to get her to come out because she didn't see whether her brother died. So she's like, my brother might be alive. So she goes to open her window. You don't need to open your window, though. Just open the blinds, like, and you'll see what's going on. And then when she opens the window, her brother's there dead, and then her balloon starts slowly coming up to her with the nose. It's like, just close the window. But she doesn't, and she dies. So yeah, like, really cool premise and everything. Stupid characters. That was the only issue with a hanging balloon. Like, all right, so then we've got episode 4, another 2-story episode. The first story is 4 by 4 Walls. This is the Suichi episode. It's just annoying. I didn't like it. It just annoyed the hell out of me. Suichi is a super annoying character, and I guess that's the point, because he's annoying his brother, so maybe me feeling annoyed like the episode did what it was trying to do. But at this point, I didn't know Suichi was an important character in the manga. I kept waiting for something to happen. This is supposed to be a horror show. I thought his older brother was going to end up killing him, like either by accident, and this was going to turn into like a Hereditary story, or like on purpose, and this was going to turn into something like the Black Cat from Edgar Allan Poe, where he like locks him in like the walls of his room, and like the brother's dead body, like something happens to it. I thought that could have been really cool, but no, it's just a kid being annoying the whole episode. Who the hell was that carpenter, by the way? I don't know what was going on with that. This carpenter shows up and starts just acting really weird and otherworldly, and then he just leaves, and that's it. What was the point of that? Then the second story is The Sandman's Lair. This was a good one. Again, just too short, though, because of the, like, 10, 11-minute runtime. This is where, like, an author thinks his dream self is trying to take over his body. Turns out he's right. And there's some really interesting, like, body horror stuff going on that I didn't see coming. And it's creative, and I really liked it. But I think we needed more time with that. I looked up in the manga, there is more time with it. So, you know, you needed some of that here. So yeah, again, that one was a good story, just too short. Now, episode 5 is another 2-story episode. A lot of these are 2-story episodes. The first story is called Intruder. Didn't like this one. This one didn't have an ending. I don't know what was going on with this one. So Intruder is a story where a guy's alternate dimension self shows up, and he's a serial killer. And again, this is like I was talking about earlier with Twilight Zone. So this is a guy who literally just makes some friends and they go, hey, you know, we're fans of alternate dimensions. Oh, that's interesting. Sometimes I think I hear footsteps in my house, and they go, what? Then clearly there's an alternate dimension in your house. It's like, what a conclusion to jump to. I mean, I know you're right, but what a conclusion to jump to. So they go to his house, and yeah, eventually they find out there is an alternate dimension version of himself there, and he's murdered, like, alternate dimension versions of the 3 friends he just brought over. And like, wow, what is this gonna lead to? Nothing! The episode just ends right there, and I'm like, okay, well, you build up that led to nothing. So I don't like this episode at all. Especially, it's weird. It started with what looked like a flash forward of him burying his alternate dimension self, or vice versa, and that never even happens in the episode. Also, the Suichi episode opened with a scene that's not in the episode, and I looked it up. Apparently that's a scene from a different Suichi story. Why would you show that? That doesn't make any sense at all. So then the second story in episode 5 is called Long Hair in the Attic. This is a good one. Just, again, too short. You're going to hear that a lot from me, because I like a lot of these stories. They're just too short. Long Hair in the Attic. A girl gets dumped by her boyfriend, and her hair is very long, but it's revealed that when their relationship started, her hair was short, and he said, I'd like it if you grew out your hair. And so she grew it out for him. She grew it so long, and then he just dumped her later on. And so I think because of that, like, you know, like the hair then became like her, like, you know, just the damage of that mentally, like, manifested itself into, like, the hair coming to life and killing things that, like, she was annoyed at this rat upstairs, so while she was asleep, her hair literally killed the rat. But then she was going to cut her hair off, so her hair decapitated her to keep itself alive. And then it goes after her boyfriend and kills him. I think it would have been a lot more interesting, though, if... because we don't see the hair kill the boyfriend, it just cuts to it's already been done. I think what needed to happen was we needed to see that kill, and it needed to be, like, drawn out, and, like, you know, the boyfriend realizing, like, you know, what had happened and everything. I think you could have had a really creepy, intense, and satisfying moment there, but you didn't, and yeah, I really think it's because the episode is too short. Now we've got, I think we're on episode 6. The first story is Mold. This is the black and white episode. So this story is where a guy goes to his home that he's been leasing to his science teacher's family, his old science teacher's family, and mold has taken over the whole house. And it's later revealed that, yeah, the mold came from, like, the science teacher's baby. And I'm like, wait, but how did it get on the baby? Like, this, it didn't make any sense. It seemed like it came right the hell out of nowhere. And so because of that, the whole episode suffers. Because it's like, why is any of this even happening? Like, is he being punished for something? What's the theme? I looked it up. In the manga, there is a reason for it. It's revealed the science teacher, like, specifically, like, to experiment with mold. And so it's like, oh, the science teacher created this. Something went wrong. See, that's what... I needed that explanation in the episode, Netflix. Like, why didn't you tell me that? But again, this is an episode that doesn't feel like it has a lesson or anything. The guy leases his house to his old science teacher, and he ends up dying because of it. It's like, okay, not sure what I was supposed to learn from that. Then the second story in this episode is called Library Vision. This one's This is a story of a guy who owns his own personal library going insane. And what's annoying is I feel like this episode could have been great. Because it's like, it's established, yeah, he's obsessed with his library. He also has private diaries where he's written down every single day of his life since he was 4. And I'm thinking, we could really go into those private diaries and reveal what caused his trauma that's leading to what's happening now. And we get a teeny little hint of that. Because, like, at one point his, like, girlfriend or wife, I'm not sure what she is exactly, looks in his diary and sees that his mom left his man for another man. And that's literally it. That's all we get. And now this character is literally, like, seeing his mother's favorite story come to life and talk to him, and his father's favorite horror story, like, attacking him, and then he goes insane. It's like, well, what's causing all this? I looked it up. The manga apparently reveals that his father took out his mother leaving on him, and so he abused him and constantly read horror stories to him to punish him. It's like, okay, that explains why now later in life he'd be seeing that horror story incarnate. Again, Netflix, you need to put that stuff in the episode. There's also one point where he goes nuts and he starts deciding he's going to memorize every single book in the whole library, which is like 150,000 books. And he says, I'm memorizing all of them, but I'm losing my own personal memories as a result because there's no space for them anymore. I thought, this is where those diaries are going to come into play, you know, because that's where his memories are, and his girlfriend can use those to save him. But no, it just doesn't play into anything. They just burn with the rest of the house. Nothing happens. So you had what could have been a really great premise, and you just kind of wasted it. You didn't do anything with it. I was disappointed by Library Vision. Now, but the next episode, this is a full episode story, Toontown. This one's great. I got no problems with this episode. This is an interesting premise. The theme, lesson is very clear. This guy and his sister accidentally run a girl over, and she they do, to their credit, think, all right, let's take her to the hospital, but she dies, and they're like, okay, let's just throw her in the trunk and find someplace to get rid of her, you know, don't take responsibility, you know, obviously, like, you can tell what they did wrong. And then they go into this town, and it turns out when people die in this town, they literally shapeshift into gravestones, which is, yeah, an interesting premise, unless but if you move the body after they die, they don't transform properly and stuff starts going wrong, and they're like, oh shit, this is what happened with the girl. And this I won't even say anymore. This is a good episode. Just check it out. It's Toontown, good one. Really like that one. Next episode is another 2-story episode. The first story is called Layers of Terror. This is a good one. I think, even though it's only a half episode story, actually, I think they gave this one like 15 full minutes. It gets across everything it needs to get across. It's, again, interesting original premise. Like, there's this mother who only loves her younger daughter, doesn't care about her older daughter. Car accident happens. You think the younger daughter's face has been completely destroyed, but it turns out she has another face underneath it, and she has all the faces from her previous years, and I could kind of tell what was going to happen. The mom was going to want to get the younger version of her younger daughter back, and everything went wrong. It was creepy as shit. What was the only issue I had with this episode is the older daughter revealed she also had multiple layers, and it was pointless. It didn't lead to anything at all. So I was like, okay, not sure why the older daughter even has multiple layers. You could have completely removed that from the story. Nothing would have changed. But other than that, really like Layers of Terror. That was a legit scary and uncomfortable. I had to look away at like 1 or 2 points during this one. So good job on Layers of Terror. But then the second story in this episode, The Thing That Drifted Ashore. This story made me mad because like they just teased me, and you have a great premise with The Thing That Drifted Ashore. So basically there's this sea monster that drifted ashore, and also in the same area, like there's a cruise ship that went down 7 years ago and the bodies were never found. And it turns out the bodies are inside this giant like sea creature, because apparently this creature ate them. And so the scientists cut the bodies out to be like, all right, let's bury the dead. But it turns out the people in the fish are still alive because they've been surviving off the insides of the fish, and they've mutated into parasites over the last 7 years. Like, they're all monsters now. And like, all right, that's a really cool premise, and I didn't see that coming. Let's see what happens. Episode ends right there. Right when it's revealed they've become monsters. It's like, wait a minute, you just got to the good part. How are you going to end right there? Made me really mad, honestly. And maybe it's because they gave Layers of Terror more time, so this episode got less time. But I looked it up. The manga has the exact same story. Like, they're not leaving anything out. So, yeah, really didn't like that episode. Got mad. All right, the next episode, this is another 1-story episode, is called Tomi's Photos. Tomi's Photos. This is a pretty good one. There's this girl named Tomi, and the main character is a photographer, and she takes pictures of Tomi, and it looks like there's another face on Tomi. At first I thought maybe she was a Futakuchi Onna. No, she's something else, and it's never really revealed what she is. But whatever she is, I really wanted more of it. Would have liked another Tomi episode as opposed to another stupid Suichi episode. The next episode is another 2-story episode. We have Unendurable Labyrinth. This one was I didn't really care about this one. These 2 girls stumble upon this cult, and the cult is self-mummifying, and they go in looking for this other girl's brother. They find him, he's already dead, and the girls just get lost in the maze, and that's it. It's over. It's like nothing all that interesting, honestly. But the second story is a lot better. It's called The Bully. This little girl's bullying this little boy because she thinks he's cute. And she just traumatizes this little boy, and then he grows up, and what I like is when he's grown up, you can easily miss, he has scars on his neck, I think from when she threw him into like this rabid dog like pen, and he tells her, oh, I didn't mind that you bullied me. I was actually in love with you. And she says, oh my God, I liked you too. And so they get married, they have a kid, and then he abandons her. That turned out that was his revenge the whole time. And then it gets really dark. And then she starts torturing their kid the same way she did him. And that's just how it ends. And honestly, that's a creepy one. So The Bully, got no issues with that. All right, the next episode is another 2-story episode, and both the stories in this were good, actually. First story is Alley, where this guy moves into a place that has a mysterious alley that seems to have ghosts in it. And this is one where we actually get a full explanation as to what's going on later. The girl living in the house is a crazy murderer and has been killing people in that alley, and their spirits want revenge on her. It's got I really wish they had let us, at the end, they do get their revenge, but we don't get to see it, and I really wanted to see it. I really would have liked to see it. But other than that, Alley's very good. The second story is called Headless Statue. You can see what's going to happen a mile away in Headless Statue. I still like it, though. Like, this guy's making statues without heads for artistic purposes. Then the statues come to life and they want heads, so they start ripping people's heads off. Yeah. In the final episode, we've got Whispering Woman. This is another good episode. Again, though, you can see what's going to happen a mile away. This woman is telling this little girl everything to do because the little girl can't make her own decisions. Turns out this woman also has a very abusive, like, guy she lives with. So I was like, oh, she's going to tell the girl to kill him. And she does. That's it. But still, good episode overall. Then we've got Soichi's beloved pet. And again, it's just annoying. Soichi is annoying. I don't like him. So those are my thoughts on all the episodes. As you can tell, like, very mixed feelings across the board. But what did you think of the episodes? Have you seen this show? Did you check out the first 3 episodes and then come back, like I said? Let me know. Yeah, that's, I think, everything I have to say about Japanese Tales of the Macabre. I don't know how to end videos.